Aguilar here from ComicBook Nation. We are here with another bonus episode, and we are talking Power Rangers. So it would be remiss for me not to have my Power Rangers buddy and all-around awesome dude, Nick Valdez. What's up, buddy?
Oh man, howdy everybody. I'm so excited, Matt. Let's do this.
I know this is ours. This is our shot. They let us out of the cage and like let us come in here and talk Power Rangers. So yeah, if you're in the know, Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, it's all been leading up to this, and it's out on Netflix today. So that means we get to talk spoilers all about it. Me and Nick had the wonderful opportunity to watch some screeners, and so we've been able to kind of sit on it for a minute, think about it, let it marinate, as it were. First, just going off of your overall reaction to the season, how are you feeling about it? What did you think?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. Just as a heads up to anybody jumping in, make sure you kind of rewatch those last few episodes of Dino Fury, just in case because it has been a while since that season came out. And just to let you know, where there is like a recap in the beginning of this show of Cosmic Fury to tell you where things are at. But it's best to get in that headspace and know where the characters are, know what they're dealing with, because right after that, just off to the race. It's off to the races from there. It just immediately jumps off, and we got 10 episodes. That's my only issue. Just right there is that I wish there were more.
Yeah, 10 is you think 10 is a lot, but then you remember that each of the episodes is 25 minutes. It's under 30.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely under 30.
Yeah. So yes, that's 10 episodes for an hour. I mean, we even talk about, I think 10 episodes for an hour long episode. 10 of those to me is the sweet spot for like every Marvel show should follow that format. I'm sick of these 6 episode things. Like, it's not enough. 8 to 10 is the sweet spot, but that's when you're dealing with an hour. When you're dealing with half an hour, like I feel like it could have probably used 2 to 3 more episodes at least to kind of fill in certain pieces or linger around longer on certain battles and things. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think I really enjoyed it. The opening is super weird to me because it is kind of a like mini recap, but it's like such a weird, like kind of shoehorned recap because they want to get you up to speed. So I really feel like to get the most out of you do need to watch those last couple episodes of Dino Fury, but they still get you on board real quick if you haven't. And I was sucked in. That first episode I thought did a really good job of like setting the table. Let's move some pieces around. Things are not exactly what you think. Ramifications set up for later. They do a lot in that first half hour. So I guess I get why they had to kind of do the abrupt intro.
Yeah, the recap is kind of like, in Netflix when you start a new season and it like sometimes they do a recap for some shows and then you can hit the skip recap button if you're all up to date on it. But it seemed like one of those. Like it's meant to have like a skip recap button. It'd be it's
part of the episode. It's like it's super weird. It's super weird. But I kind of going back to our 10 episode thing, I guess like, hey, let's just get it done. And I like how it's kind of done within the characters, like talking to each other, but still I think I would have just been okay with a separate like little recap trailer that Netflix does sometimes where they just get you up to speed, like get me up to speed on Dino Fury.
It was really weird. Like, remember when we did this and we did this and we did this, and it's like, we know you did this and you did this, right? And so and it's funny because that first episode also felt like a finale. Like in the old days, the finale, you'd get like, oh man, the Zords are destroyed. Oh no, the command center is blown up. Oh, they're going to need new powers. And that's where the first episode leaves us, right? And it sets up for a great show, but it's also like, oh yeah, this is the Dino Fury season 2.5. Like this is like the bridge to Cosmic Fury.
Right, because they don't even... And by the way, we are going into full spoilers for this episode. So if you haven't seen the whole season, or you haven't, but you want to talk about it anyway, hey, we're here for you. But you can always listen to this later once you finish the season. But full spoilers from here on out. We've been kind of vague, but from here we're going to get into it. So the thing you referenced, like they don't get the Cosmic Fury morphers. and they don't become Cosmic Fury Rangers until episode 2, right? Later episode 2.
Yeah, it's like maybe even episode 3.
Yeah,
or
it might
something
be
like
3.
that.
Yeah. And so like, they get the Zords are discovered before they actually become Rangers. And then we start moving the plot along kind of big time in like 3 and 4. But I will say it did feel like that. And it like works for me and it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me because, obviously you want to see the new stuff and you want to kind of get them rolling on that sooner. But I did actually, we're both huge fans of Dino Fury. We really liked what they did. So it was actually kind of nice to like settle into that. And that actually makes the argument that you don't need to go watch it because they do a lot of, all of that stuff gets thrown out, destroyed, twisted, whatever by the end of episode 1. Yes. So it does act as its own kind of onboarding. And I like that. And one of the big things, we'll get into like how this show takes a few big swings. And obviously some work, some don't, or are going to work for some people. But I think one of the bigger swings is that it actually feels like more than any other Power Rangers season, other than probably the originals, because they were just done so differently. And it was such a different, unique beast, right?
Right.
But this feels like an adventure as opposed to a opener, a finale, some filler in between, and then like a couple really cool moments. Like that's kind of the general formula of Power Rangers over the past 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, it's a single story rather than the Monster of the Week formula.
Oh my God, it was so nice not to have that. I don't care about the guy that looks like, Legos, or the guy that looks like a thing. Or the guy that looks like a stoplight. I love those monsters, but like I don't need that now, and to have to have this kind of through line and taking us to different places. It was almost a little, and I'm going to use this and don't like flip out on me, Star Wars fans, but I'm saying it had some Mandalorian vibes of like, we're going to go to different planets. We're going to move to different things. We're going to meet some different people along the way. It felt like, there was like circumstance episodes where like the ship crashed and they had to just like go get food and then they had to get the ship back working. That's a whole episode, like that's.
It took the benefit of being a streaming show. Like this was produced specifically for Netflix. And so because of that, like it's allowed to be like, oh, we know people are going to be watching from episode to episode. So there is no need to spend 1 week going, oh, Amelia's hunting ghosts this one. Instead, they can tell these cooler stories of going to these planets and like, and even, cooler, but still the goofy stuff, right? Like there's a space worm that's attracted by the soup that Aeon makes. And it's just like
ridiculous and it's amazing. Aeon, by the way, stole so many scenes for me this year, this season, more so than in season 2 of Dino Fury. Like I feel like he just really came into his own here. It's so his whole cooking thing and like constantly wanting to make stuff for people. I laughed multiple times when he would just show up and like say random stuff. I think he got a lot of shining moments here.
Yeah, and speaking of big swings, we have a ton of them, and it's almost as if being the first like really original Power Ranger show meant they get to have some original ideas. I hate to say this that way, but we got our first female lead Red Ranger like full time. Not one of those. Not one of those like, oh, she's in an episode, or like here's Grace in the comics, or like nothing like that. This is like, no, Amelia's here. She's the new Cosmic Fury Red Ranger, and she's there leading the team. And it's great that like it builds up to it too. It's not really like she just happens to be red. Like no, it's such a cool Power Rangers thing too that like the morphing grid chooses red for her. And it's a surprise to her. And like, that's only one of the big swings. You got Ollie. The biggest twist is that Ollie was evil for the whole season, basically.
And he was fantastic.
Yeah.
As an evil ranger. He's so good as an evil ranger. I was so happy for him because I felt like sometimes he got like a little lost in the shuffle, or like his arc he has the biggest arc of anybody in the first two seasons of Dino Fury, just because his personality kind of, chisels away. Like Amelia chisels away at it as time goes on. But like here, like him fully being able to lean into that, and I love the false things of like, oh, he's cured, and oh, he's not, and I love that that's a genuine thing throughout the whole thing, to the point where it made me buy in at the last one. Because I went, oh, he's not. Okay, he's still not. And then they went, oh, and they hooked me because they had done such a good job of like, nah, as LA Knight would say, nah.
Yeah, and you have Izzy and Fern who get to have their relationship on screen. Sometimes it's a little annoying, I will say that, because Izzy's character arc now is just like, I'm worried about my girlfriend, and it's like, okay, one or two episodes of that is fine, but then it turns, that's her whole thing the entire season, until Fern's like, look, come on, and becomes a ranger herself, and then it's like, all right, and we get an orange ranger on top of that who ties into Solon. Like, there's just so much that cool. Yeah, there's just so much I appreciate here, that they're allowed to have these original ideas. Like, it felt fresh. Like, it felt like the last time this really happened was like in space.
Yeah.
All the way back then, where they just like completely did something on their own terms, their own brand new terms. And like, this feels like that. This felt like,
and then probably was what, RPM before it happened again, really? Like in that kind of way, like where it felt like they just were allowed to do some stuff. Like, you got to keep these tenets, but like, here you go, just do whatever the heck you want in between.
Yes, and like, it's cool, and the new suits are fine. Like, it's Power Rangers stuff. Like, I liked it. I liked that it felt nostalgic in the way that like it still looked like their old suits, but like there are little changes here and there. It's kind of like the classic era where it's like, they're ninjas now, but they're still wearing the Tyrannosaurus costumes.
Well, I like that they reference that kind of stuff in the show. Like, well, I like that while we don't get the filler episodes, and not even some of them weren't filler episodes, but we don't get some of the kind of episodes where you go like, well, they could have maybe cut that for something else that was push the story forward. I do love all the references here, because if you watched all those episodes, like the end, right? Amelia's still like, oh my God, we're gonna get to that big thing in a minute. But like, she's like, oh, a ghost? Like, I'm in, right? And then you get all these little references when I think it's Javi. Is it Javi that makes the big pun? He makes a big pun at one point, and like everyone rolls their eyes. And then there's another thing. One of my favorites is actually an exchange between, I think it's Izzy and Ion, maybe, and they're going back and forth. And Amelia was like, number one, this, but then also number two, we agreed not to discuss this because this happens. Like, she like puts out an argument, and it's just, if you watch the other ones, you get why those moments happen, and they're funny. I feel like Zayto's thing at the end, it sounds so dumb if you don't have the context of what that means, because when he says like cool, coolio, cool, you're like, the hell does that mean? But that's something he learned along the way, and you have all the context. It's like heartwarming, because it's like, that's awesome,
it's the benefit of keeping this cast too, letting them go on one last like little adventure, and like it's a really smart move. And this is just, it just feels so smart the way that, because unfortunately that I do have some negatives about this, like there, and that goes with the smaller 10 episode order, and you can tell that there are limits here. That's the unfortunate thing. It's not going to be like the comics where they can do literally whatever they want. It's here. It's like, oh, we can tell a space story. We can do this stuff, but you're going to see some recognizable monster suits. You're going to see like they have new powers, but they are the Dino Fury suits, like advanced. Like, it's little stuff like that. Like, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I do feel like it's very smart in what they can do and what they're able to accomplish just by, they work within those limits. And that's Power Rangers as a whole, right? Where, Power Rangers as a franchise, you get that stuff from Japan, you look at it, and they're like, what can we do with this? You work within the frame. And here, they work within the frame. They were able to tell their most original story yet, but also they made smart moves to just make this land the way it did, keeping the cast, keeping the story going, having Zed being a super antagonist, and like I think it all meshes well together.
Yeah, so a couple of things on because I agree with you. I think my only most of my nitpicks come from probably like budget limitations
Yeah.
and time, because 10 episodes, you're
Yes.
fitting a lot into that. So most of my criticisms can probably be traced back to that. They're not necessarily exactly those, but they're like, things of like, hey, this was a little too crunched, or this was a little too like we could have
Yeah.
maybe lost that or whatever. At the same time, I think Amelia, Hunter, like that role is like she owns that role. She's owned it
Yes.
the last two seasons of Dino Fury, but this is like you were right. Like when you said she's a Red Ranger, like she's a Red Ranger that deserves now to be held up to every other Red Ranger. Like she's in that pantheon because that character is fantastic throughout this whole season. Like she's the glue
Yeah.
that keeps everything together, everyone moving, and it doesn't feel. I like that we also didn't do that. That arc of like, am I a quality leader? Like I've seen that so many times.
Yes,
I don't need
no
it.
wasted time. No wasted
None.
time.
I
The
don't need
rest
the
of them are,
angst.
and there's no like, oh, I don't know if she's fit to be the leader.
Right.
Immediately, everyone else is like, well, of course, it makes
Yeah.
so much sense. Yeah,
That was so nice to see that. Javi's arm. I love what they
Yes.
did there. Like he loses a limb. Like that's for Power Rangers, where death doesn't happen very often. And typically, like most times they come back or they're somewhere, whatever. Like having that kind of thing, and they showed it. Like he doesn't
Yes.
have an arm, and then he has to learn it again. And I know that like the whole thing of like him playing the guitar is kind of funny, but I think I still love what they did with that organically and him sacrificing for the team and how that plays in. I will say we got to get to the Zayto of it all, because Zayto is he was the other big thing, right? He dies in the second season. He straight up dies in the second season. And when they bring it back, I thought they did such a good job of melding that with Morphin Masters that like, good grief, they're all throughout this thing and presence and whatever. His story is going to be the most divisive because of the ramifications at the end. So obviously we'll get into spoilers here. Zayto, it is revealed later on, which I thought was a cool twist, that he was brought back by the Morphin Masters, but it was using their magic. And the magic is what keeping him alive. So the more he uses that magic, he starts to essentially spend his own energy, and he will run out at some point, and it's finite, and he will die. He will go back to the grid, like he will die again. That's revealed, and like those two episodes like really deal with that are fantastic. They do a lot there, but then he's able to, kind of essentially in a scene that doesn't really come into context until later, able to be formed into something new, into a new type of ranger, and in effect a Morphin Master. And that suit rules, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, Russell like is so good at that character, and it just like it works. Like when his commanding presence and the voice and everything, when he becomes a Morphin Master, I bought it completely. I was like,
he knows what he's supposed to do, right? Even when they CG him to make him a little bit bigger, right? To like size him up. Yeah, I was just like, I love this. I loved it, because it's like, you have a godly being on your team, and he's limited by and it's also like it's a very show thing too, where it's like, but they made sure to limit him because otherwise it'd be like, well, why isn't Zayto just doing everything? So they made sure to like have it there, be like super powerful, but also be like, no, he's dealing with his own thing. And then just the coolest moment for the whole Zayto and Ion arc in general is the Zordon shout out. Like,
get to that.
Yes. So, Ion, like, just contact Zayto in like this ominous white void that's like might be Morphin Grid, might be not. It's just this thing. He sees Zayto, but it's not Zayto. It's someone who says, "Oh, I recognize words like Power Rangers and Zed, and like I don't know who Zayto is, but he's out there somewhere." But his eyes are like stark blue, and and then he says, "May the power protect you." And it's such a cool thing because that's something they didn't have to do also.
Right.
Like, it's also just completely unnecessary. Like, I mean, it is unnecessary. Let's just say that straight out. Like, this is a you and me thing. Like, they know us old heads are watching this thing and going, oh, that's Zordon. That's our Leo DiCaprio moment of like standing on the couch going, that's Zordon. And it's great because you have Billy there the whole time talking about like Zordon. He's mentioning him throughout the show, and it ties into Once and Always. I think Once and Always takes place after this, which is kind of cool too. I feel like it would take place after, because there's a shot of like a Yellow Ranger too in one of the episodes.
Oh yeah, I saw that shot.
Yeah, we don't know if that's Trini or Min, but I'm gonna assume that's Trini, and that's just like because then Once and Always Billy's then actively searching for Zordon because he knew Zordon was out there, right? And in here, he finds out Zordon exists somewhere. And I'm just like, oh, this is all stuff that we didn't like. The show did not need to do, but I'm glad it did, right? Because this is just a part 2 or a part 3 for Dino Fury for kids who watched Dino Fury and who loved it, right? But then they added this stuff for us.
And even just like the playing up of the, how the villain plan is the inverse of in space. It's like it's the evil wave as opposed to like that. All that stuff, having Zed, I also applaud the twist of having Zed figure into the ending, but in a very different way, because you think like, and I looked because I remember that part where he's got the throne, which by the way, Izzy has some great lines in this.
Oh yeah, is that an N? What does the N stand for?
Yeah, what does the N stand for? And let me guess, it's got tentacles, a throne, and this, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, great line. But like I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, this is like episode 7. Like what?
Yeah,
this feels like the final battle. It's like, no, my only, and I also got to give, because we got to wrap here, but I got to give my a shout out to Fern. I think that character surprised me so much because while I agree with you wholeheartely on Izzy, because wasn't a fan of that, because I kept going like, oh my God, stop it. Like,
yeah, one episode was plenty, and then it just kept happening. And Fern was like, I'm clearly actively helping you. Come on,
I'm capable.
Yes. And that's the other thing, right? It's like she's not a baby, and and you have these other civilians helping them throughout the show, and it's like, come on, like. And I'm glad Izzy eventually snaps out of it, because Fern's like, look, I'm a ranger now, okay? Like, this is it. But, I wish we got more of that.
I agree.
That's what it is it took too long to get to there. But I totally agree with you. I like what we got.
Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously, we could go on forever. We got Heckle comes back and in a move straight from the comics. Like, I love that they reference it. Like, hey, I went on this whole arc, and
he's like, hey, I'm a good guy now. I'm a ranger, and everything's cool now. And it's just like, okay, that's what I'm saying. There's so many things like that where it's just like, okay, cool. You didn't need to do that, but I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Are you happy with how it ended? And also, what do you want to see next from the franchise?
The problem with the ending is that it does feel abrupt. That's the unfortunate thing, is that, and that's an unfortunate aspect of it being 10 episodes. Like, those first few episodes are like kind of taking their time to build things up. And then about like halfway through, it's like, oh, we got to speed to the end. And so I wish we got that time spent more. Like, maybe if it was like a 12 episode season instead. Like, Netflix doesn't do 12 episode seasons, but I wish it was something like that, or maybe like a 45-minute final episode, like we got with like a Once and Always kind of length episode, and that's just my thing. But how it ends, and everybody's happy, Morphogrid wasn't destroyed. I thought they were going that route when they were like, oh, we have to blow up the Morphogrid and lose all our powers. I thought, oh, whoa, is this the finale? So, but yeah, I'm happy with it ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm same here. I think, there's a part of me that's like, oh, it'd be cool for them to, leave some other threads, but the Zordon thread on its own, I think, is big enough. I think that's a really big thread just to put out there in the whatever happens type of thing, because obviously this franchise is in reboot mode after this, that whole Entwistle, show, movie, connected universe is something that's in development. And so whatever that becomes is what will really be the next era of Power Rangers. Hopefully it does become something, So with that, I was actually kind of happy that we just left off in a very like happy place. I was excited. I wanted to see everybody kind of back together. The Zayto stuff was awesome. I loved it. I loved the ending line. The song went on a little long for me. As I'm nitpicking. I'm nitpicking.
Those are
dumb.
nitpicks, but that's Power Ranger stuff. There's always like if there's a musician in the team, there's going to be a song that ends the show.
I
right?
know,
like,
and it's
it's always going to be a concert. But like little nitpicky stuff too. Like Billy, when when Amelia was like, "I'm a sister now," Billy's like, "I don't care. What about Zordon?"
Billy had a couple lines. I was like, dude, relax. Ease up, homie. Like
that's why I imagine Once and Always takes place after. Like if that makes the viewing experience easier, because it doesn't necessarily tie in, but there's a little nugget there. And same thing with like you said, like for the future of the franchise, I'm happy with taking a break. This is a nice little cutoff point for it now. Let's let Hasbro, whoever, like, let's let them figure out what they actually want to do,
right,
and see what that, let's take a year off. Let's take a year or two. Every Power Rangers fans have dealt with this many times in the past, right? Like it's the series has straight up ended before.
It's true.
For many years before coming back with something new. So we're in that phase again. Let's just see where it goes next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to enjoy this. I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna actually show it to Ember at some point. Like it's exciting. I enjoy this. I love that the cast got to just come back for 3, and you can tell they've grown so much with each other, and like the chemistry is great. What I will say is before we leave is that number one, I love the suits. I had reservations like everyone did when they were starting to first reveal them and stuff, and I liked things about them, but I wasn't sure how they look in live action. I will say, watching the show, those suits look fantastic in live action.
They're great.
Thought, like the texture, the material, like everything just looked really good. The Red Ranger and the Blue Ranger suits specifically looked awesome. I will say also, this starts a trend, and I've already seen it online, and it's giving me like DC movie, like Snyderverse vibes of like loving a thing that everyone agreed on that we like didn't like at one point in time, and now it's all of a sudden the best thing ever. And so like the Disney era is now being celebrated as the best thing ever to happen to Power Rangers. Please stop that mess. Okay?
All right. We all know that's a lie.
I've seen, because no, it's everywhere right now. Oh my god, look, they had to be good since Disney. I'm like, go.
No. SPD was great.
Rocks.
Disney had its great shows, but let's
absolutely.
But everybody calm down.
Thank you.
This is no.
Let's not do that. Okay.
No.
Sorry.
Like don't pretend that don't automatically pretend something's way better just because it's not like the one you're watching now or something. Like you're just enjoy what you have now. You Power Rangers fans, if you're like us, if you're the old heads like us, you've been with this for a long time, and there are some ups and there are some downs. And here it's like it's an up. It's a great show. Just enjoy it, because you're gonna be crying when there's no show next year.
I know, in like 5 years, watch it. Oh man, you remember Cosmic Fury? I'm like, oh
yeah. And all of a sudden, and you and I are going to come back on this show and be like, wait a minute. No, you were lying about Cosmic Fury. You didn't like it back then.
By the way, I love stuff from that Disney era. I'm just saying, like, come on, let's not go overboard. And
let's
see
not pretend.
It happening already.
No.
But Cosmic Fury in itself is out on Netflix right now. I think we can both agree. We heartily recommend it. It is. I enjoyed so much of it. You can check out my full review of it on now that I got all my thoughts together and stuff. You'll see my full review on comicbook.com later today, most likely. And then if you want to talk about anything else, hit us up on the socials. Nick, where can they find you?
At Valdezology on all the socials.
And you can find me at Matt Aguilar CB on all the socials. And we will talk to you guys later. May the power protect you.
Oh.